I'm going to try to dive into this. I've been working on it to try to see how I can say this out. It's a little bit complicated the way the pages are worked out. Because it's a very long shefa down here at the bottom, which we're going to go take a look at. This number Gimel down below. And I want to look at it because it maybe has some important information, background information. But at the same time, it seems to be one inyan, and we'll try to take it on. So he says like this: the inyan is bizman abayis kol yizivub de panim bepanim bezman zech da'ach da'ach ba'ach ba'ach. Panim bepanim versus ach da'ach. The Vishab, so he writes like this, and I'm just reading the top now. The Vishab bizman shochoya besim mitish kain. Hoya chazivug ha'elyon bebechinas panim bepanim lehotzi neshamos chadashos. So that seems to be a very important phraseology. Aval achar ha'churban ein ha'tefilos shalanu, then our tefillos lanu mo'ilus rak lefi shah, only for that moment. Lahavi neshama chadashos, to bring new neshamas, bebechinas ach ba'ach belvad, but they can only come in the sense of ach ba'ach. Now, what I know from what he said previously, and we saw in the Shef and other places, it could be the ach ba'ach refers to a yichud, a lower level yichud between Yisrael Saba and Tavuna. Whereas the panim bepanim is a higher level yichud, I mean more panemius, closer to the light itself, coming from Abba ve'ima Yeloyin, Chochmah Bina. Now that's what I know from previous. Doesn't mean that that's where the Rab's going to go now. So I want to go back and look at this shefa here, because this is a whole subject that I'm not so good at, and I'd like to see what he's saying. So it says like this. He says, the fisha bizman shehoya besa mikdash kayim aval achar churban. Now we come to the time after the churban. Now we're going to go through some facts. We're in the shefa Hakavanot. He says like this: Hinei harav. That's the RIA Kodesh. On that page. He says the rivach of a machalek bein zman beis hamikdash the zmanenu anu, to our time. Rak be'inyan azivog anaase b'yom. But when we talk about the yichud that takes place in the daytime, shebizman beis hamikdash koyen nemshachos the shamos chodashos bebechinas b'panim b'panim. These were very, very high level amunis dika neshamos that knew. Of Zman hazecha nimshachos rak the shamos the bechinas ach ba'ach. All you see is the backlight. V'la'achar mekan. So from after this, Kosef the chazivuk the chatzos alaylo who rak lechadesh as a neshamas. He writes that it's only for the purpose of renewing neshamas. It doesn't sound, it's not the same as neshamas chadashos. Lechadesh neshamas. V'lochu bevur be'im bezivuk the chatzos alaylo. He doesn't explain over there. If you're talking about the yichud that takes place at nighttime, v'gam yesh chiluk bein zman beis hamikdash l'zmanenu olo. And so whether we're talking about that at nighttime or we're talking about our time or that time, olo. So we have to try to sort this out. What is in fact the Rav talking about? Let me see if I can get this all on one page so I don't have to screw it up too bad. Okay, there we go. And we're working here on number Gimel. But before Shem, he says the Yafashah, and it's Shem and Sasa. So they understood the words of the Rav. There's a difference also between Bizman Abayis and now. The Rak Ata, Bizman Hazeh, Haziv, the Lailach Moil, Rak Lachadesh, Esh and the Shamos. So only now this has the ability to be able to be Chadesh and the Shamos. Amdam is bezman abayis, but we see the time of Beis Hamikdash. Hoya chaziva gazecha v'yosem v'ula was a higher level of hoya b'kochel lahamshach l'shama chadasha. You bring new energy into the world, not just polishing. Gam came also. B'vad masha hoya gam mechadesh as an neshama besides the fact that it's also perfecting and renewing the neshamas chadashos, which I remember that he stuck in there the idea they had to do. What does renewing have to do with renewing the yesod of the nook? I still don't see how this all goes together, but I'm trying to put it together. If it's man b'beis mikdash ha'achiluk b'bein zivug hayom v'halaylo hoyakad loholon, it's like later on. The hazivug the yom koyim molid neshama chadashos, because the yichud of the day, koyim molid neshama chadashos, brings forth new neshamas, the bechinas b'panim, which has this quality that they're coming from an extremely intimate place with the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. V'azivud the laila hoyam molid neshama chadasha, the bechinas ach ba'ach. That's also a possibility to say that's a difference there too. V'la'acha ha'churban says like this: Yordach b'zivugim b'midrigasim, the Yezudim went down. V'antach b'chazivud dinon, the yom, excuse me, the we have today. So let's say it means the daytime. Molid neshama chadasha, the bechinas ach ba'ach. V'edach b'zivud the lailo. Lo molid klal neshama chadasha, doesn't bring out neshama chadashas at all. El Irak mechadesh, but just polishes. I'm using the word, my word polishes. It renews as in the neshamas of yeshanos. V'zos bo harav the voyer concept. Rab's coming now to teach us this. The kaven ja'atach yardach hazivugim darga. Yardach hazivugim darga. So now that we're in a lower level of zivug, which I think sounds like Yisrael Savat Devuna. I'm not sure why or what exactly, because for a yichud to take place between Abba v'Ima Eloyin, it means that Zohar Banok, or our prayers have to actually be at that level, beyond the level of Yisrael Savat Devuna. But anyway, B'meila Chaziva Delaylo, who rock the Chadish and the Shabbos, is only for that purpose. V'yesh the ayin shaharecha b'vur luchalon, it says later on, Shachaziva Delaylo, who Ziva the Bia Rishayna. That's another idea. It's a zivug. I would think it's of a kindness, where it's necessary to have a yichud because in the place of the chek of Abba v'Ima Eloyin, in order to be able to make it come to pass. Otherwise, the reverse, the order is wrong. Perhaps the female becomes before the male, or it's just too early. There's no mochin for it. It doesn't bring first, it makes kalim. So if im kain, so if that's the case, how can we say that it's possible that it's making the neshamas? V'shem b'bizman abayis hazivad delaylo choya zivad gomer was a complete and total yichud mishum shelo choya histalkus amochin, because of tzarich iyun, all of that takes more iyun. A lot of different ideas being thrown, because when you have multiple players, nighttime, bizman abayis, bizman shalom, bizman abayis, daytime, all these things. So let's go to the next one. There's another, there's a little note here. That's what we're going to talk about. Now, what happens after the churban? Let's see some ideas. Churban ain't tefillah shalano mo'ilos. It don't help. It only helps. Rak the fee shah. That's temporary. And all that whole idea, it's only bringing it now. We can only, what is the first word? Rak lefi shah. Only momentarily do we have neshamas chadashos. So, what does it possibly mean? It says mavur kan. The kodem ha-churban hoyach ha-zivug diyom b'bechina b'ponim b'ponim. V'la'achar ha-churban koy rak b'bechina z'ach l'chayr kasher. But this becomes a problem. Why? The harim b'vur become a b'komos mechem b'drush alav the kriya shema over there. Sha'azivug ha-na'aseh b'birchas sem shalom, which is at the end of the Shemona Esrei, which is the ultimate yichud there. Who's zivud upon him? It says over there, it says zivud upon him. The gam bizman azeh has zivud upon him. So there it says there is a zivud upon him. You said that the bizman azeh is not. So the liyashev zo. So in order to solve this problem, Hevira Mefarshim, the Shem and Sason, and the Gobi, he says, as Masha Kasser Rebbeinu B'Shechah Mitzvahs, what do you write over there? Zechad Shona, Kol and the Shamas of Bowls, Achar Churban Abayis, Even though that they're coming from a yichud, which is in fact an ultimate yichud l'choleda, which is called panim b'panim, the zon, is still not considered to be panim b'panim, even though it is. It's a complete yichud, but it's still, how is that? That's what he says. Behind the sha'amdam, ha'zivak azbach na'aseh b'panim b'panim. But as we look at it, its value is the same. That's what I think archo means here. Could be wrong. So as archo hu b'chinas ach ba'ach is a concept of ach back ba'ach. In other words, so we got to explain it more. Rabbi Hashem and Sasan as the Indian. Now Hashem and Sasan comes along and explain like this. Al piram b'vur b'Rishash, as explained it over there in the Rishash. He says, "B'charichos kama mini zivugim sheyeshnem ba'abba v'imba v'yisro saba devuna v'hama'ulam b'kulam uzivug degar shalahem." Now we're really getting into this. In other words, he's saying that you could have a yichud that takes place between just in the gar. I don't know. Is he saying that? Let's read on. Let's read on. The big time zivug is the top of the top. Shalahem v'zivug zechav v'nipsak ha'churban. So from that time. It's ma'az. From then, there was the churban. So at that time, that yichud of the gar bagar. In other words, let's look at it like this: the yichud of male and female. It is rosh, toch, sof, all three parts: the head, the body, and that's the lower parts. All of those join into complete oneness. He says when you have the gar, that is the ultimate. In other words, the head is involved. So but that yichud of the gar and the gar is gone. That is, of course, a panim b'panim yichud. Of course, that's the highest level of yichud. Also, you have that in Nar Shalom. The birurim v'hatikunim hana'asi b'mosachol that are made during the weekdays. Hein the parts of ach. There are the parts of ach. Again. This is a Rishash now. During the weekday. There's a parts of, in other words, parts of means 10 spheros. 10 spheros are the category called ach. The parts of ach are nikra vok, which ach is also called vok because it's katnas. The nikra chitzonis, also called by that name. How, in fact, are they put in the proper order? Order. So I'm trying to get my Midwestern English straightened out a little bit. They're also called vok v'chitzonis. Be'erek abba v'imei loin. Those abba v'imei loin there in that case would be considered to be the rosh. Let me just read that part. So let me say this again. He said the habirurim v'chatikunim hanaase b'mosachol. Heim parts of ach. They always come from the backside parts of. When we say something, look at the backside parts of. The backside parts of, in other considered relative to the front side parts of, is considered to be just the vok, which is chesed gevurah tiferes netzachod yisod, the nikra chitzonis, and it's also outside of the gar, which is panimi to it. V'tikunim na'asach yedeh. So how, in fact, is this vok built into a way that it could be mature and reproduce? It comes through Yisrael Sabbat Devuna, which bring in these the mochinin. Hanikrim gam heim vok v'chitzonius be'erek abba ve'ima, which are also considered to be, because they're considered to be outside or surrounding abba ve'ima iloyin, and they're lower than abba ve'ima iloyin as a result. Let me see if I can. It's a little bit deep stuff here. In other words, you could call things by different names, but he says consistency here. This is that, relatively speaking, everything is relative. So he says, relatively speaking, which relatively speaking is in a plane which is panimi to zun, hanigraim gam heim vok, and they're also called vok, but when? V'chitzonius, Ba'erech in relationship to Abba Ve'ima Elohim, because they are lower than that, and they're at different levels, so they're going to call, relatively speaking. This is a concept of relativity. Because that yichud that takes place during the weekday, it's not complete yichud. the Zuna Gedolim, which would be the Yichud of Zuna Gedolim. Ella the Yaakov Arachol, but it's only relationship, once again, it's the Vok part of Zuna Gedolim. Shabbos, but not on Shabbos. Hatikon hu bebechina bepanim, shuhu bebechinas gar, then the gar comes in on Shabbos. Beruva parts of panim, the call mash and the sakim, b'shesh shemei hol. And this, let's read again. This is the face parts. Before we said there was the parts of the ach, this is the parts of the face. The call mash and the sakim, b'shesh shemei hol, and it has to do, it's built, I think that's my words. It's built, he says, what is built, that you build during the 3 weekdays. And a complete and total zivug takes place then. The klalos atzilus, now let's just go through that real quickly. What's chaya? Chaya is the higher level of the makif, which is a very, very strong light. And where do you find that, relatively speaking? The klalos atzilus, which is the light of olam atzilus, and it's also the light that comes from Abba ve'imah Eloyin ad kan devarov. This is what he says. This is something to review and put in your pipe and smoke on it for a while and see what you could do. But move on. So this we understand like this: the hazivugan the yemosa chol. Al-af shehem zivug panim bepanim, and even whereas we know that the zivug panim bepanim, mikal makom, in any case, they cry him hem zivug da'ach ba'ach, they're called Yisrael by that way. Why? Again, the period, it's called that relative to what you're talking about, to something that's higher or more panimi to that. Kevin shehem bebechinas ach dezun, because that's the aspect of ach dezun. And it's which is katnas, the kitzonis, all those other words. Because of Hashem and Sasson, the Lefi there, so the Semen Shah, the Lefi there, he's a Sorach Olomar. You have to say like that, the Rebbeinu Rebbeinu Hocho, that when he says this here, what is he talking about? He's talking about Hazivugin the Yemosa Chol. He's talking about weekday Zivugim. Let me see if I get this focused a little bit better. There we go. The iluch abachazivugim the Shabbos, because if we're talking about the Yehud the Shabbos, heim kain bebechinat panim bepanim. That's a yichud that is built into panim bepanim as a result of going to a higher level. Vayim b'besoros hakavanot ma sheshinach Hashem and Sason, about this as a girsa kan the fizem. That's it. Mm.